Hello guys, Lid here. So PoE 1 will get a new event, which is Legacy of Phrecia, and it will start soon. I think in like few days. I want to talk a little bit about a new Scion's Ascendancy, which is a scavenger, and this is basically my plan for that event. And one league start that I try out on Microsettler League is Power Siphon. And Power Siphon with Locus Mine is not a new setup. I mean, a lot of people already use it, even on race. So the setup is really good. And before I kind of tried to make it work on Scion, but right now with a scavenger, with a new Ascendancy, it actually works really well with Power Siphon. And Power Siphon is a really good league start because it requires very little investment for it to work. It's really good at creating maps, which is what you're going to do most of the time on the early of the league. And then it's also have a decent amount of single target. So for killing something like early bosses to get your watchstone and everything, the Power Siphon does have good enough DPS for that. And if you want some example on like how to run from Act 1 to Act 10s, including with the POB, the item filters, the loot filters and all that stuff, I already made all of that on 3.25. So I will link all the resources on the descriptions. You guys will have access to all of that. First, let's talk about the new Ascendancy Scavenger. So this is a new Ascendancy. On the first cluster, there's a few very strong nodes. The first one is Cloak of Flame. If you play PoE 1, this is probably the item that you're going to see a lot, which is basically 40% of physical damage from hits taken as fire. This is really strong defensively, even though this is only from hits, but it's still really good on defense. The second really good one is Saffron Wrapping. Is chaos damage taken does not bypass energy shield. This is not going to work for every build, but for something like Aura Stacker or a build that using like something like Ivory Tower, now you don't have to use cross-cutting elixir, which is a really good convenience, because cross-collecting elixir kind of annoying to use. With Saffron Wrapping, you don't even have to use that. So this is a really good node if you play a certain setup. In my channel, I do made a RF build that using Ivory Tower. That basically like a mini version of Captain Lance Giga RF. Saffron Wrapping will be very good there. And another node that are kind of good is also Blunderbore. This is going to give you Brutal Shrine that I think is 20% increased damage, and Massive Shrine is like 20% life and AoE. So with the 40% effect of Shrine is something like, I think it's around 27, 28. Blunderbore is pretty good early on, and if you're playing Power Siphon, the first node that I would go to is probably Blunderbore. It's just more damage and more life. It's very good early on. Or if you want something a little bit more defensive, Cloak of Flame is also not that bad. Fogshed is also really good if you're build using CI. So 20% increased movement speed when a full life. If you CI, you always count as a full life, so you just get like 20% increased movement speed, and damage of enemy hitting you is unlucky. 80% increased global evasion rating. So Fogshed is really good if you using CI. If you're not using CI, then Fogshed is not really that great. So, and early on for Power Siphon, I'll probably go for Blunderbore. And then we're going to have a choice. There's an upper cluster of here, and then there's a bottom cluster. The upper cluster is this one, which is have a really good node. For example, Obliteration. This node is insane because it gives you 30% chance to explode and dealing quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage. This is for cleaning maps. It's really good. Now, for Power Siphon, this is not going to work because this line says enemy you kill. If you're using Power Siphon setup, it combined with Locus Mine, you basically a mine build, and with mine build, you are not the one who killed the enemy, so the explode not going to work on the Power Siphon. But if you play something like RF or any other thing that you kill yourself, Obliteration is really good for mapping. On Power Siphon, the strong node is Void Battery. This is probably this will be the second node that I would recommend to go for if you're using Power Siphon. It's going to give you +1 maximum power charges, and it's also going to give you 25% increased spell damage per power charge. This is really good DPS. Fulcrums, to be honest, I never really played around with that item, so I don't really know how good this one is. Midnight Bargain is a little bit weird. Cerebral Slim also kind of weird. Nicta Lanterns, Battle Mage, I think this is for Mana Forge Arrow, but I think Mana Forge Arrow have Whisper's Ascendancy that are basically a lot better for Mana Forge. So for the bottom line, this is probably for attack. I never play attack on Scion, like this node over here, 2% increased area of effect per 25 rampage kill. Gain a frenzy charge on every 50 rampage kill and gain rampage. This is probably can be used if we are using Ranger version of Scion. I do make that one before. It's been a while. I haven't go back to the setup for a while. This is probably can be used with that because the rampage is pretty good. The frenzy charge is also pretty good for the bow setup. The other one is Doomfledge, but Doomfledge is not something that are going to be good early on because gain 20% weapon physical damage, extra damage of its element. This is going to be good if you have a like really good physical bow, which just come a little bit later on. This is a lot of DPS, but early on, I don't think this is going to do anything. And let's go for the last cluster over here. 45 is a lot of people use for mapping for the power siphon. I personally never use that. I think with power siphon with Pierce, the clear is already really good. So I don't know how much I will need the 45. I don't know how much I will need this node, but this is probably something that we can look into a little bit later on. But the node that I think will be 100% good is that rush. That rush is something that really good if your content is mapping. It gives 100% damage. That's a lot of increased damage. 25% attack, cast speed, and movement speed. This is really good for mapping. Also, the 10% physical damage reduction is also really good. So that rush is definitely a node that I will take early on. This node is just really good in terms of mapping. Another node that I really interesting is leadership price. This is going to give Sourcing Conflux, I think that minus 30% resistance, and Brittles, they're going to give you a ton of critical chance. Sapping, that's going to make the enemy deal 20% less damage. The problem with leadership price, if you have this requirement while your two highest attributes are equal. Now for PoE 1, having equal attribute is a little bit of a problem than PoE 2, because PoE 2 your attribute point on the tree, you can switch between attribute. On PoE 1 that's not the case, so you have to kind of balance your attribute yourself, either from here or from something else, because leadership price is only going to give you the benefit if you able to meet the requirements. So if you want to play with leadership price, you have to meet the requirements. It's not that hard, but it's still something that you have to feel. And the next one is Surface Heart. Chaos damage can ignite, chill, and shock. This is very good with the combination with obliterations. For example, something that I can think out of my head right now is RF. I do make an RF build on Scion before. If I'm taking obliterations, the enemy explode, it deals chaos damage. And because my chaos damage can ignite, let's say the chaos damage ignite, and there is a node, something like Fan of Flame, they can spread the ignite enemy dies and they explode again, and basically you get like a chain explosion. This is really good for clearing maps. I think Pox also talking about starting with scavenger RF. So if you guys want to play RF, I mean Pox is the RF guy. So the next one, let's move into the POB. This is a POB for the Power Siphon Scion that I'm using. And if you click over here, there's a bunch of options. This is from Act 1, and it goes from Act 1, Act 2, and all the way up to Act 10. Now, the important note on the early game, especially Act 1 to 3, the most important part is I'm already using Power Siphon on Act 1. Basically level 12, because that's a requirement for Power Siphon. And the problem with that one is I have to manually detonate mine. For me personally, I don't have a problem with it, but if you guys have a problems, I will suggest go for early magma until Act 3. You can get detonate mine from library, and that's basically going to automate the detonate mine. But in my versions, I'm using Power Siphon since level 12. So from level 12 until Act 3, I will manually detonate my mines. And another option you can go for is also mine mastery over here. So instead of patting down here, you will have to pat over here first. There is a line over here that's going to give you that the mine is trigger while you are moving. This is also one way to automate the detonate mines. If you want to go for this one, you can go for it. The reason why I'm not going for this one, because I already get used to manually press the mine. So for me, that's not that big of a deal. There's no reason for me to add more respect point, because this is a point that you're going to respect later on. So this is so that's about the Act 1 to Act 3 that you have to know. And once again, I have Act 1 to Act 10 runs, which is basically the whole campaign. That basically is the practical examples, what I do on Act 1 to Act 10 on the Power Siphon Scion. Over here also on the items, and you can see if you press over here, there's always two options. The first one is level 95. The first one is Act 10. This is the item that I use on the run itself. And on the skill is also the same. I also have the Act 10 skills. This is the skill that I'm using on the campaign. And after that, if you already on the mapping, this is the tree and the skills that I'm using on the maps. At least this is the level 95 versions, and this is kind of like mid-budget. A lot of the items here I don't think is expensive, except for this one, Replica Hierarchy. This is pretty expensive gear. The reason why I'm using this is actually for the spell suppressions, and this item basically kept the spell suppression to 100%. If you do not use this chest, one thing that I can suggest is go for the spell suppressions lucky over here, because we already have this one. You just need one more point to get the spell suppression is lucky, and that's it. So the chest is not exactly mandatory. The reason why I like the chest is because it gives the spell suppression. It also gives decent amount of damage. Monolithic Fallacy is also one thing that I will highly recommend to go first, because Monolithic Fallacy is a really high DPS boost. If you can get this item early, go for it. Let's say that if you get like a divine drops or like lucky drop of the divine, if you get enough currency, buy this item first. This is going to boost your damage by a lot. And the next one is probably Void Battery. If you want to use Void Battery on your wand, you can also use that. In this case, I'm using a rare one, but I think you can still go for Void Battery, it's fine. The power charges itself is going to make up for the crit chance. The setup is really good on League Start. The only problem is probably you're not going to be very tanky. The physical damage hit is like 9,000, it's not very high. The defensive layer won't be that good, but this is a mine play style. So with mine, you can always try to keep your range and try to not get into like a middle of the pack. That's something you should not do when you play mine. It's not going to be tanky, but based on my experience, this is a very good league start. I'm really happy with the setup, and I can farm currency really fast early on with this build. And one last thing is the note section over here. Please read the note sections. There's a lot of things that I explain here regarding on the like Act 1 to Act 3, because Act 1 to Act 3 is like the most dense part where you have to set up everything. Act 4 to Act 10 is basically you just trying to get through the campaign. Also important here is Power Siphon is an attack skill. This is really important. A lot of people probably going to misunderstood like we are scaling also spell damage, like why this is an attack skill. Well, Power Siphon is an attack skill. If you read on the Power Siphon, the attack is attack. It's not a spell skill. The reason why spell damage work because there is a line on the skill gem that increase and reduction to spell damage also apply to attack damage. This is why spell damage work. But Power Siphon itself is not spell. It's an attack skills. So something like, for example, this one, it has adds 15 to 257 lightning damage. There's another modifier that's similar to this, basically adding lightning damage to spells. That modifier will not work on Power Siphon. So that's one thing that you have to pay attention to when playing Power Siphon. And also I explained for one, this is the stat you're looking for. And there's also if you want to craft your own wand, there's a few options you can go for essences, which is basically the crafting mechanic that you're going to use early on. Also, there is another source for like a flat damage, for example, like ring, amulet, glove. 3 of this slot have a flat damage craft on the crafting bench. So I basically try to get as much information on the note here. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I will update the note section of here. So this guide can cover like most of the cases. So once again, if you guys have any questions, leave it in the comment below. I will try my best to answer it. And if you like the video, consider like and subscribe. That will help the channel a lot. And thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day.